Start. All right. Hi, everyone. How many of you are watching me for the first time? Like, apart from my own students, others? Okay. My name is Vikas, and I'll be teaching you current affairs in the entire year. We will be having weekly classes. Today's session is meant to show an orientation on what should be the approach for current affairs. Okay. How many of you gave 26 exam? Everyone, just tell me how many of you gave the 2026 exam? Or how many of you at least saw the 2026 paper? So, what is your opinion about current affairs? You must all have some kind of opinion, right? Let's have an interactive session. Let it not be a unidirectional monologue. What is your opinion about current affairs? Some of you were also there in my previous current affair batch. Do you think current affairs is about information only? Or there is a specific purpose for this entire session? Why do you think is UPSC interested in current affairs? Question number 1. Yes, everybody? Please tell me why current affairs. You must all have some opinion? Yes? Okay. Why is UPSC interested in dynamic nature of things? Anyone? Adapt. Right. Okay. Why should we adapt? To survive? Okay, let's say to survive. Fine. Now, I will not ask why do you want to survive, because that defies the entire existence. Okay? But I'll ask a different question here. What is your motive to survive? Just to live like that? Is there a difference between an animal and a human? So what is your motive? Yeah? To live a very dignified life. But what is the definition of this word dignity? What is dignity? Which is worth living. I think it is worth living in, a palatial bungalow. Only in a house like Ambani's live. So, do you mean to say anything other than that is not dignified? So, do you think there should be some qualifier here? Everybody please put your phones away and put it on silent. Should you add a qualifier to this word dignified? What is dignified? Just take a minute and think. What do you mean by dignified life? That is not at all controversial. That is not at all contested by anyone. Basic needs. So, the qualifier here is a dignity that is not subjective, that is something very basic. Can I now say UPSC is interested in those dynamic issues which will at least have an impact on the basic dignity of human beings? So, this forms the baseline of what we should study in current affairs. Yes or no? But how do you know this is dignity? Anything that has got to do with human existence will become an aspect of dignity. Understood? So this will be the filter, the most basic filter for deciding if a current affairs issue is worth studying or not. But this filter is not good enough. You know why? Everything that is there in newspaper is about dignity only. This is the most basic filter. Now what should be the second filter? Can you tell me? Any guess? Filter number 1 you understood. What is the second filter? Relevance. How will you know relevance? Exactly. Syllabus. So the requirement number 2 is that you know the entire GS syllabus. How many of you know it verbatim? GS 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you reproduce it from your memory? How many of you are repeating this exam second time? At least one attempt is over. How many of you are done with it? Not even once. How many are there? First attempt in 2027. So people who are giving this exam for the first time in 27, this basic funda, remembering the syllabus, should not be ignored. It is your responsibility to remember the syllabus. Because if you don't even know the syllabus of the exam that you are aspiring for, that too, this is the exam of the highest prestige in terms of a democratic platform where if you study and put your hard work, you can achieve power. Okay? It is not dependent on anything else except your own effort. Okay? And you don't even know the syllabus after so much time. That's a problem. Third thing, syllabus is very vast and vague. Say for example, art and culture. If this word art and culture is there, can I say it is current affairs? You can. Can I not say it is current affairs? Again, you can. How do I decide if it is current affairs or not? Yes? You see a newspaper article mentioning about, let's say, Kakatiya kingdom or some fort in Maharashtra which got a UNESCO World Heritage Site. How do I know that this is static or dynamic? Because it is mentioned in newspaper, does it make it a dynamic topic? Sometimes there is a newspaper article which is, let's say, 1 page long. Whatever information that you read here will take, let's say, 20 minutes. Okay? At the end of the article, you will find one extra piece of information that is not there in your static textbooks. Let's say if you are reading the 11th class Fine Arts NCRT, all this information that you read is already there in this textbook in one way or the other. Maybe the format of presentation is different. Maybe the language is different, but the essence is essentially the same. So when you are dealing with a news item like this and spending like roughly 20 minutes, at the 20th minute, what is the takeaway? Yes? I gave you a hypothetical example. There is a newspaper article which is talking about a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Let's say Hoysala temples. A long newspaper article came on that with very flowery language. But if you remove that flowery language and look at the essence, all that is already there in this Fine Arts NCRT textbook. In order to know that this piece of information is already there in this book, what is the prerequisite? You should read this book. If you are not even aware of the existence of that, how will you know this is not current affairs? And at the end of this, that one extra line, which is an additional piece of information, should I accept it or reject it? How do you decide? Should I accept or reject? Syllabus and previous year questions. Okay, great. Now imagine, I'll give you one question here. Great that you pointed it out. Let's see one question from the 2026 paper. Okay, let me ask you this question. What is the answer? Guess. Why do you require time to take a guess? A shot in the dark. You have nothing to lose. Okay, let's say 44. Somebody is saying 44. What is the rationale? Okay, fair enough. 50-50, it's in the middle, so you took a shot at it. What else? 34. What is your rationale? What is your logic? Many questions are static. Okay. Any other? 47 is the only thing that is left. Anyone who is taking a shot at 47, is there any other logic? Whatever may be the logic, whatever your mind tells you. Anyone who is taking 47? Okay, why? Okay. Even though they are inspired from static, the answer is in newspapers or current sources. That's what they say. That's why I want to attribute it to 47. Now I'll ask you the same thing. If the answer for that question is there both in static and a newspaper, where will you place it? It depends on who is giving the statistics. I am in a current affairs class. If I say this number, it will attract you. If I am in the foundation class, I will show this number. If you want to know the reality, it is not uniform for everyone. It's somewhere in the middle. These are randomly picked up numbers from different websites where everybody is claiming this many questions came from static, this many questions came from current affairs sources. I'll give you one example. The next question that you see here, take a look at this. Can you look at this question, everyone? This is about a question about one government initiative called Sagarmala. Sagarmala. Okay, let's spend some 2-3 minutes on this topic. Now, I'll give you the broad overview of what this initiative is all about. Let's go back to geography. India is described as a peninsula. True or false? True. How do you know? You looked at it. That is what the textbook says, that is what the map says, that is what the definition says. To decide what are the things you needed, the definition of a peninsula, the image of the map, and a decision making mechanism. What is universal in every question? The third element, decision. On what basis will you decide? Is it information? If it is information, let's have a look at this question. Anyone who does not have a context of this question can still answer. Let's see. The program, whatever it is, seeks a port-led economic growth through cost-effective and sustainable coastal infra. What is it about? It is a program where you are trying to build ports so that we can have economic growth. Okay, I don't know if it is true or false, and I'm not even expected to answer that. Let's see. Its success is reflected. When I say it's, obviously it requires a context. My mind will obviously ask me, what is it here? The answer is Sagarmala. Its success is reflected in growth in coastal, inland, waterway, shipping, and improved port rankings. I don't know. Okay, let's see. Next statement. Sagarmala 2.0. I don't even know about 1.0. This guy is asking about 2.0. Let's see. 2.0 aims to position India as a global maritime innovation hub aligned with Atmanirbhar Bharat and Vikasit Bharat 2047. 3 random statements which I have never read. So, if you were in college or school, how many of you are from state syllabus? How many of you passed your exams in COVID? You shouldn't raise your hands. There were no exams in COVID. Just joking. Okay. So, now when I'm asking you this question, how many of you are from state syllabus or CBSE, there is a context to this. Many students feel underprepared or underconfident because they compare themselves with people from different backgrounds. Right? You all have some kind of fear. One is, can I know the language? 2, do I understand the large volume of information at once? Can I remember all of that? So many doubts, insecurities you will all have. Every person will have their own problems. Now, if memory is the only tool that you are using to pass the exam, this is a nightmare. This is a torture. You by heart 1000 pages today, I'll ask from the 1001. Because I don't have to listen to you. If I'm like a sadist and I take pleasure in torturing you, I'll say this is the syllabus. And then I'll ask question from outside that syllabus. You come back to me and protest, this is not what you said. Why are you asking this question? There is no reply. You are talking to a wall. That's exactly what UPSC is. So, you are not entitled. If you read 1000 pages of information and memorized it, that doesn't make you a worthy candidate in this exam. If memorizing that much, sitting for an entire year is also not a guarantee, then what is? This is the question you have, right? So, if you don't get an answer to that question, what is the metric for consistency? Consistent success in this exam. And if you don't get an answer for that, you will draw a conclusion logically saying that UPSC is unpredictable. Then what is a metric here? Can anyone tell me? Being comfortable with that unpredictability is the metric. So, how do you filter out information? How do you take decisions? Success in this exam is no longer about what you remember. It is about what will you ignore. Okay? There is this theory called red car theory. How many of you know it? Exactly. If I tell you that from the next time you are on the road, don't see a red car. Okay? What is your response? You will see more red cars than what you will usually look at. Now, if I have to use this peculiar psychological behavior to train you, what if your mind is trained to see the things which you are supposed to see? If I give you a directive that you should see this, it is much better than not knowing what to see. If I give you a piece of information, let's say I'll take this article. Let's have this activity on this example. So I prefer to handle things through demonstration rather than just teaching you information blindly. I am not a storyteller where I just give you this is important, this is important. Why is this important? If you're always dependent on me to decide for you that this is important, who will take that decision for you in a challenging environment? My role as a mentor or a teacher is not to make you dependent on me. What is it? It is to empower you to decide what is important, what is not. And what are the metrics? What are the tools? The tools that I particularly use are 4. 1, syllabus. 2, previous year questions. 3, it is the existing information. 4, it is the psychology. Right now, most of the students are stuck at the first 3. Newspaper sources, PYQs and syllabus. Syllabus and PYQs. Let us use the 4th metric or the 4th dimension that can make your life easier. The psychology aspect of it. So in our mind, there is something called RAS, reticular activating system. I will not complicate it with complex jargon, but I'll simplify it for you. When you talk about this red car theory, when I tell you that don't look at it, this part of your brain is activated. It is alert to avoid it. Okay, you're always looking at it so that you can avoid it. You're sensing danger. Don't you think this is a paradox? When I tell you this is danger, don't look at it, you search for it more. Can anyone tell me why this happens to you? See, you are moving on a road and I'll tell you, if you have to live, don't look at a red car. That is the exact torture that most UPSC aspirants feel. The entire ecosystem operates on the element of fear, not on the element of hope. You remember a mistake years later, but you never appreciate yourself for the good work done, and that is not a behavioral trait, it is brain's physiology. Unless your brain senses danger, it will not consider it as an information worth remembering. If you are remembering everything, you are treating every piece of information as a source of your survival. Our brain has limited mental capacity. In the processes required for success in this exam, memory is one part. What are the other parts? Mental activity. See, if you are a computer, there is a hard drive on which you will store your PDFs, movies, classes, everything. And then there is a CPU which processes this. What is more important? Both. This is another trap that UPSC lays for you. Both are equally important. What will you process if there is an empty thing? And if you fill your entire mental energy with a dump of information, what do I do with it? UPSC is never about either or. It is both. There is good in it, there is bad in it, and the ability to take that decision, unlike in your sciences, where you have a black and white scenario. UPSC is not like that. And why is it? Because the definition of what is considered to be dignified, the decision of what is considered to be dignified is dynamic. For example, you must all have heard about this thing called privacy. If privacy is a value that we want, for the first time in 2017, we had this judgment from Supreme Court called the Puttaswamy judgment. Why did it become important only in 17? Are you telling me that privacy is not important in 1947? Then why were we not discussing privacy in 1947? Why did it become all the more important in 2017? Internet, use of technology, priorities of government. So, what decides this priority? What decides that need? Here comes the second aspect, allocation of resources. Privacy became important in 2017 because of the rise of internet, like you rightly mentioned. 2016 is when Jio came up with a free internet. In a single year, there is an exponential rise in the number of internet devices through phones, and internet utility became mainstream, and that acted as a pipeline for gathering all the data. Many times you can witness internet becoming so important that your life cannot function without it in present day. If your presence on internet is going to threaten you, logically privacy becomes a necessity. See, if you do some activity that you in a way threaten the position of the government, don't you think you are under a threat now? Don't you think your privacy is necessary? But why was this only a need in 17 and not 1947? It was there, but it was implicit. It was implicit because it did not become a trigger for the Supreme Court to sit and have a discussion on it. It might have acknowledged if the situation arose, but it didn't, because the ecosystem was not designed for discussing privacy as an issue back then. Whatever affects that human dignity as a first filter should be passed through syllabus and PYQs. Till here, everybody is doing the grunt work. This itself is very draining. Okay, you join a current affairs program to do that grunt work for you. I will do it for you. But can I learn for you? No, right? What does it take to learn? How many of you are already feeling restless? Do you notice that you lost the ability to sit for a stretch without looking at your phone or without having something to think about? This was a evolving need. Nowadays, students are requesting that we deal with lectures on reels under 1 minute. Make a reel, 2000 reels on monthly current affairs. I will learn from that. Okay, I will dump you information. You watch a reel, you know the information, move on, move on, move on. Do you realize boredom was actually essential for human mind to process information? In the absence of boredom, and you're constantly stimulated, you lose that ability to process. So your hard drive is getting updated on a daily basis, but your RAM is losing that because you don't have the ability to think. Something that you don't use. We are not machines. Even machines require some kind of servicing. In the absence of that trigger for thinking, obviously you lose the ability to think in the long run. After all, we are all biological beings. We are not machines. Artificial intelligence is giving you a larger context window. When ChatGPT came for the first time, what do you mean by this context window? How many of you know what I'm talking about? What is a context window? Anyone? Any idea? Let's say when ChatGPT launched for the first time, if you enter a chat and sit on it for an entire day, it will lose the context of the chat at the end of the day. Now, if you do that continuously for an entire year also, it can remember. So, if you give access to ChatGPT for every thought of yours, it can dictate how you will think, what you will do, and what is the next logical step in your life. So this is another situation. The context window is getting larger because the processing speed of the AI companies is getting bigger. Why am I talking about AI companies now? You might be wondering. Because you are not writing this exam with an AI chatbot beside you in the exam hall. You might be studying with an AI chatbot, but you are not writing the exam with an AI chatbot. So whatever is the baseline in 2020, it is here. In 2026, it is somewhere here. So the gap between what toppers must have advised many years ago will no longer work in 2026 thanks to the paradigm shift in intelligence. The other day there was an article in the Hindu which I think is the most important article in this year. You are talking about digital public infrastructure. See, this is a topic in itself which I will discuss later, but I'm just giving you a context. Electricity is indispensable. Internet also became almost indispensable. Now, in an age of AI, when a company has access to AI and you don't you think inequality will increase? Let's say I want to know what is my strength and weakness. I have an internet connection and I have the ability to pay for a ChatGPT premium subscription. I will check and know my positives and negatives and then design my plan accordingly. If you are lazy, you will ask it to create that also. And if you don't know what to prompt, you will ask that also. Give me a prompt on how to prompt. Okay? If that is happening in today's life, you are not completely isolated from that reality as an aspirant. If you think you are smart enough to prepare for this exam with ChatGPT, your competitor, your peer is also doing the same thing. Intelligence is no longer a tool. Sorry to break this for you today. If you are in the myth that ChatGPT can solve your problems, the bar has been raised. So how do I prepare now? This is where you have to understand what does not change. The nature of the exam is still the same. Let's go back to that question here. Statement 2 validates the effectiveness of statement 1. Will you agree? Here the statement is, how many of you lost the context of this question by now? Yes, tell me before that. Before I progress, tell me. How many of you forgot the context of that question? What is that question about? What about Sagarmala? What are the 3 statements? Can you recollect from your memory? How many of you remember the 3 statements? Confidently raise your hands. Yes? Okay. Okay, what is Sagarmala is not important. Now let's read the options. Statement 2 validates the effectiveness of statement 1. What is it? Its success is reflected in growth in coastal and inland waterway shipping and improved port rankings. In deciding whether this is doing this or not, are you expected to know whether this is true or false? Is UPSC asking whether this is true or false? They are not even questioning this. So is this a question of current affairs? Is this a question of information? Or this is a question of judgment? Judgment? How will you judge? You need to know the logic of judgment. Okay, here is where another skill comes into the picture. Inductive reasoning, deductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning means you see some samples, like you must all have went to chemistry lab at least in your intermediate or 10th class. You take some experiments and repeat some values. Based on the commonly observed value, you draw an inference that okay, this might be possible. Okay, then the other side is you come up with a thesis. You want to test. There is a hypothesis. You will say that sun rises in the west. To know whether that is true or false, all you have to do is wake up in the morning and check. If you find a sun there, please wake up. It is in the east. You are still sleeping. So the decision that you have to take on the basis of observation, on the basis of inference, is a skill that is not demanding your memory. Like I told you, our brain has many functions. One is processing, the other one is storing. Most of the students approach this exam as if you are storing information and your life is depending on it. When you have cloud servers which can store tons of data, TBs of data, do you really think UPSC is expecting you to store that information? Do you think UPSC is asking you to remember all that information and write it in the paper? No, right? They would rather invest all that money in building a good computer. Then what is it that they are expecting from you? What can't AI do? At least yet. It can't think. Rational thinking is not there. Then why are you using ChatGPT to prepare for this exam? ChatGPT can only play around with the probabilities that are existing. It only plays around with the knowledge that is already created. Just like how a piece of information is retrieved upon a prompt. In the red car theory, usually if nobody gave you an instruction that don't look at red car, you wouldn't care probably, unless you're obsessed with red. Okay? In a similar way, unless and until there is a particular relevance for the survival of human beings and dignity of our life, that piece of information, even if it is stored, will become less relevant for our country today. You know, Red Fort is built with red bricks. Obvious, right? What do I do with it now? If it is built with red bricks or red sandstone, it doesn't matter. As of now, it doesn't matter. So, your brain has limited capacity. If you are still stuck debating whether it is built with red sandstone or red bricks, or if your mind is drifting towards whether in that time period burnt bricks are a thing or not, if your mind is thinking in like this, you are chasing the high of information. Just because you know a lot of information doesn't make you useful in bureaucracy. And just because you can't remember a lot of information doesn't put you out of the race. It's a fine balance between logic and memory. There is a limit to how much you can remember. And using that limited memory, you have to play around with the tricks that you learn, the skills that you gain, and the observations and the psychological hacks that you gather from the surroundings. That is the purpose of this entire program. My methodology is not here to dump content. I am neither a news anchor, nor a journalist, or a person who wants to operate on FOMO. I don't want to dump information and make you feel like you can't remember this, therefore you are unfit for this exam. My approach is dependent on making you empowered to decide what is the news information that is worthy of picking up. Let me demonstrate this to you through some points. Now, let us finish this question. Statement 1 contradicts statement 3 by focusing only on traditional infrastructure. What do you feel? Okay, let's say, do you accept this question? I mean, this statement? Now, let's take a look at the second one. Statement 3 extends statement 1 through a future-oriented framework. If this is talking about 1.0, this is 2.0. Right? So, 3 is talking about a future. So, this is also correct. If 1 and 2 are correct, how many options are there? Do you have to know about Sagarmala? Do you really have to know the definition of any single word here? And yet you got 2 marks. If your mind by default says, I don't know what is Sagarmala, so this question is gone, without even trying, you're giving up. And the problem there is attitude. So this game is about psychology as much as it is about knowledge. When all the people are put under pressure of time, the ones who survive that pressure will come out. If you are not coming out successfully even after doing all the necessary work, it just means that you have to train your mind. Not mug up more information the next year. That is a sure shot way of making sure you will fail again. You have to upgrade. I'm not saying you shouldn't upgrade. I'm not saying you should plug your knowledge gaps. But that ability to decide between how much is relevant, how much skill is necessary, should be taken through an observation of the previous year questions, your own mindset, and discipline of sticking to the syllabus and not trying to memorize more than what is necessary. Because this moving parts are there, current affairs becomes the most unpredictable area for your preparation in this exam. Here is where I'll try to come in. What am I going to do for you? I told you that first you have to apply filters. Second, you have to analyze PYQs. I'll stop here. What do you mean by analysis? It's a very vaguely termed thing. Nobody has a concrete definition of this word analysis. Is it about picking up keywords? Is it about remembering information based on those keywords? Or is it about a trend and a pattern? Or a combination of all of this? Ideally, this confusion is what paralyzes all the other aspirants. What am I trying to do to handle that part? I will teach you a framework for analysis. People might already know who are part of my cohort. So I'll tell you what I'm talking about. You know the Bloom's taxonomy, right? Most of you. There is a psychologist who came up with this concept of a system where learning stages of human beings are categorized at the bottommost layer. So if you divide the entire stages of preparation Our human mind processes information in this multiple stages. Firstly, you try to remember, then you understand, then you compare, then you discuss, evaluate, and finally create. These are the various skill levels that every UPSC aspirant should have for all the syllabus items and the sub-themes. Unfortunately, most of us are wasting our time here itself when the questions are here. You will get questions at this level also, I am not denying. But if you analyze the UPSC PYQs, you will realize that the number of questions that are coming purely from memory are reducing. But if you want to succeed and you want to compare two things, these information pieces are still relevant. You have to remember some information, you have to understand that information, only then you can compare in the exam hall. Yes or no? That is the challenge. So I will sum up once again. What is current affairs? Anything that is related to the basic dignity of human beings will become the baseline for current affairs. That is the most basic filter. Even if it feels like basic, it's a huge ocean. Now I am applying a second level filter. What is that second level? Syllabus. This is defined vaguely. Therefore, I am passing through a third gate. Previous year question. And if I have to succeed, I have to understand myself, self-awareness, our psychology. So this is the framework in which we will deal with all our current affairs, and we will start with here and end here. If you reach this stage in every topic, you cannot be scared. No one can scare you. Because by the time you reach this stage, you will know what it takes to create content. When you are writing an answer in the mains exam or giving an answer in the interview panel, this is the stage which comes into the picture. This is what is required. How do you think a chatbot like ChatGPT is operating at this level? Through training of patterns. It remembers, understands, compares, discusses, evaluates, and then reaches the stage. There are many more frameworks. It is not as simple as this, but this is the most fundamental and the easiest level to process information. When you reach through the higher levels of each skill set, you will gain more and more confidence. So I will not make it, applicable for every topic. In this course, depending on the complexity of the entire exam paper and the trend and pattern, can anyone tell me what is a trend and what is a pattern? Can trend and pattern coexist? In a time frame, let's say, questions are asked in this area. If, let's say, for example, I'll give you polity. In polity, you have center-state relations, federalism. So if this is the if PYQ analysis is done, the number of times questions came on this, it will identify the theme. Then within this, pattern is in 2021, 22, 23. In these 3 years, you had a question on federalism. So you see financial relations, administrative relations, and what is this? The third thing, judicial relations, for example, legislative relations. Every year, you are witnessing a question on federalism, and you will look at the question before that, 2020, 2019, 2018. Again, the same pattern is repeating. 18, 21, same kind of questions. 19, 22, same kind of questions. 20, 23, same kind of questions. This is pattern. Now, what is a trend? Within financial relations, let's say, 1 year they're asking what are the provisions. Second year they're asking what are the problems with the provisions. Third year they are moving towards specific. That is a direction. Trend indicates a direction, and like you mentioned, trends can disappear because trends evolve. What is important for dignity right now? If states don't get proper allocation from the center, they will not have money for the schemes, and that becomes a major priority. So my emphasis will now be on understanding how center-state relations will function within the domain of finances. That doesn't mean other areas are unimportant, but our brain has limited capacity, right? So I will focus more on this than search for very random current affairs on the other two areas. First finish this, then we'll go back to that later. Like this, depending on the current situation, we will complete for all the topics. Now, if you do this, the baseline is set. The low hanging fruits is set. If those areas are tested, everybody will write. If you make a mistake there, it is your problem. Because when I say baseline, what does it mean? Last 1 year current affairs. Okay. Now, if I take the current situation, the theme, financial relations between the center and the states in 2026 versus financial relations in 2014. That is a comparison based question. In the Bloom's taxonomy, it is at a higher level. Okay. Trend, pattern, and skill. These are the metrics for you to decide how to approach current affairs. This is all very chaotic right now for you. I will be solving all these problems for you by filtration mechanisms. And I will help you just focus on the execution. This is the promise that I can give you. What is it that I need from your end? Because we are all bound by a mutual contract. If this is the deliverable, what is the return that I can expect from you? Yes? In a current affairs program, the fact that you're all interested in this itself means that you're signing up for consistency. That's not going to be a problem. What is a bigger problem? The red car problem, FOMO. If I say you don't study this magazine, or don't study this, what is your first instinct? Let me see what is there in that. Compare. This point is missing. Why are we not covering this? I told you, boss, our brain has limited capacity. First finish this. Once this is done, we can go there. Because the probability of asking a question from this area is drastically higher. If you make a mistake, you're out. So the entire program will again be divided into order of priority. My priority will be the most current ones. You should be updated. And like I told you, if there is an entire article on let's say that example of Hoysala temple, only one line is important, or only one line is new. Your job now will be not to store this. That is the first instinct for everybody. You got new piece of information, store, push it in the hard drive. Your computer can store that, not your brain, because your brain has limited capacity. Okay? How can you make it stick? There is this book called Make It Stick. It is about understanding your own brain. If you're interested anytime, you can read that. Use it. If there is no utility for something, do you really value it? How many of you have downloaded PDFs that you never touched again after the first glance, but you still store them. Let's be very honest. How many of you have it? Me also. I also have so many PDFs there. Downloaded like almost 12, 13 years ago. Never looked at them again. I'll look at them and I'll say, I'll read that somewhere in the future. It's been like 15 years now. That future is nowhere to be seen. You and I are not immune to this. It requires a conscious choice to stop somewhere. And that is what I'm expecting from you. I am never going to claim that all the questions will come from my course. That would make me an idiot. What am I promising you? If you stick to this program and practice it diligently without having a FOMO, you will have the skill to deal with that unpredictability. You might ask me why. Because if I draw a boundary and I'll give you all the possible scenarios within that boundary, first train for the trends, patterns, and then finally attach the information. Information becomes the least of your priority. You're training your mind to see where to fit this piece of information. If this additional piece of information is neither useful for mains or prelims, I am never going to store it. If you force yourself to think of a way to use it, obviously everything will feel useful. Is it directly useful? If you are unable to decide, discard. Understood? So, there is no single answer for this. Depends on how you want to sell it. Like I told you. You can use any metric to say something is difficult, something is easy. Now, 2026 paper felt like it's a scam. Entire 1 year felt like we've been wronged, we have been cheated. And people had very drastic reactions to it. Fair enough. When you are preparing in a certain way and you don't get it like that, obviously you'll feel cheated. But those who were a part of the last year's cohort, I'm not claiming that I predicted this paper, but I'm definitely claiming some things about the shift in the nature of the exam. The first one being the length of the paper. How many of you were there in the last year's class? Like I see quite a few. Throughout the year, I kept on telling you, expect a lengthy paper, expect a lengthy paper. Now, I am not connected to UPSC in any way. They have no business dealing with me. Okay? I don't have any insider info. Neither do I claim that I've got intuition. It's just pattern observation. If everybody is having access to ChatGPT, if everybody is reading the same material, if everybody, like the number of people who are working extremely hard to crack this exam has risen thanks to the democratization of information. Your Telegram free courses pirated once, the free test series, ChatGPT, textbooks are free, YouTube is there, Instagram is there, Reddit is there, Telegram is there, everything is free. How will you differentiate yourself from the rest of the crowd? What's your USP? Why should I select you? If your answer is I can remember things better, try telling that to ChatGPT. Your answer can never be that. The ones who survived this year, I'm not saying everybody is extremely good and the ones who did not make it are bad. The lesson that you have to take away is there will always be uncertainty. What creates that uncertainty is not information, but the lack of skills, the lack of judgment skills. And as far as human mind is concerned, there are certain formats of asking a question: application based, memory based, inference based, comparison, all the 6 things that I spoke about. evaluation, comparison, discussion, memory, understanding. Only this level. Creation based questions will not come in prelims. But you have to use that skill to memorize quickly. You have to use that skill to make it stick. We will not talk about that level of paper now. We'll come back. Okay. So, all in all, tell me, how will you sum up? What does it take to handle current affairs now? We have not talked about any topics or sources. What are the necessary ingredients to handle this paper? Yes? Open a book. Take your pen. I'm giving you the time to get bored. Now is the time to process everything that you have done in the last 1 hour. Everything that you have studied everything that you have learnt in the last 1 hour, put it on a paper. This is the simplest task that you can have. If you are unable to decide where to begin, if you are unable to decide what to write, what to omit, if you are unable to decide what is the most important takeaway, this inability is coming from distraction. Your mental energy is focused on consuming, not processing. If you're not trusting me, write down. Try creating what you already know. You will understand what I'm talking about. Go ahead. I'll give you like a couple of minutes. All right. In this activity, what did you observe? Are you able to reproduce everything? Everything that was discussed in the last 1 hour? What were you able to reproduce? Do you think the notes that you made right now, whatever you have written down, will it be exact replica for two people? What are the things that can differ? One, order of priority of the points. Two, the language. Three, the direction in which you went. If the same lecture can produce so many different outputs, where are you really different? Why is it that you are producing different outputs? Can anyone tell me? How you process it? What is the basis of that processing? You were explained everything in detail here itself. Importance that you assign. Again, which brings us back to that red car theory. No two people perceive threat in a similar way. What you think as dangerous need not be dangerous for your neighbor. Understood? And that is why it is important for all of us to arrive at a common ground. There is a baseline which is set by UPSC. Preparation means coming onto that platform. So you have to realize the gap between where you are and where that platform is established. That is the step number 1. Step number 2 is how do you raise the bar from that platform? If you are arriving at the stage, that is not good enough. You have to outperform your peers. What does it take? Here comes the importance of practice. When you're all on the same platform, it is just not enough to know. It is important to prove that you can actually do it. That is where the test series comes into the picture. That's a later part. So if you ever find yourself not testing where you stand through an activity like this, at the end of the day, you don't know what is the takeaway. You don't know what to do with all that information you think you know. You don't need a test series or you don't need a random person guiding you. The most effective way of knowing where you stand is checking. Don't assume anything. Once you start writing down, did you skip because that piece of information is already known to you, or did you skip because you forgot? That single insight will decide how to take the next step. Everything else is a shot in the dark. So, in this year, the paper felt difficult because when you are under continuous stress, imagine you are running on a treadmill. Usual speed, human beings 6-7 kmph is like running. Suddenly I increase the speed to 9 kmph. And you are running and running and running. You can do that only for probably like 20 seconds, 30 seconds if you are untrained. I increase the speed to 12. You will collapse. Right? Now, how long can you stay at that 9 kmph? That will decide whether you will come out alive or not. UPSC preparation means not being happy with the fact that you stood on the treadmill. It means that you have to run at 9 kmph for the longest possible time. So 6 kmph is not good enough. 7 is good. But it is 9 that gets the job done. 9 not for a millisecond, for a long period of time. And that makes it even more challenging. So to endure that pressure for the longest possible time, you have to train for it right from day one. It is not enough to teach you this is a possible question. You need to be trained to use that information again and again. And what is the best way? Active recall. At the end of the day, nobody needs to tell you anything. There is another psychological technique called the Feynman technique. Richard Feynman is a physicist who discovered something very fascinating. He realized that if he taught kids something that he already knows, it sticks in his memory quicker. So this brings us to the next step of how to study. Point number 1. The direction is decided by previous year questions, syllabus, trends, patterns, and finally self-awareness. How to increase the self-awareness? Trick number 1 is Richard Feynman's technique called Feynman technique. How do you actually make it possible? Whatever you did right now. And analyzing the gap between what you know and what is written. And realizing why that gap is happening. The fix will come at that stage. So it is not served on a platter. Current affairs is not about collecting news. You will know a lot of things, but that is not going to guarantee success. If only the most knowledgeable people cleared this exam, you would be surprised at the number of people who would never make it to the services list. Understood? What do I do with it? Always ask this question, and that will be the main anchor for our entire program. So the problem is, last year you were expected to run at that 9 kmph for 90% of the time. There is no breathing space, no easy question. You scan the paper, it's a shock. Next question, double shock. And after a point, you got used to that shock. You remained in that state of shock and came out. So, if someone asks you, how did it feel right after you walk out of that exam paper, you almost feel like pushing that trauma onto someone else. Right? Who is to be blamed here? No one. So what will we do? We will rant about how UPSC is difficult. At that point of time, emotions will be running high. You've spent an entire year. After that, most people decided to exit. Okay, they came back anyway, that's a different thing. Because this exam is addictive. Your first reaction is, I won't write this exam ever again. Nahi hoga bhai mujhse. It's too scary. But you are addicted to that cortisol, high level stress. You want that. So you come back here again. So if you come back and do the same thing, you will probably endure that shock. You will come back shocked again, but that is not the purpose of coming back. Do it in a way to become shock resistant. This program is about how to become shock resistant. Okay? It doesn't depend on the source of information. It depends on what does not change, the skill set required to process any information. So, current affairs program here is not about the hard drive. I am not a hard drive provider. It is to improve the efficiency of your RAM, the processing speed. The one who has trained enough to react in the shortest possible way will endure that shock for a longer period of time. Okay? This is an endurance training program. The same piece of current affairs will be passed through multiple checks, multiple perspectives, till it becomes so intuitive to you that you are bored of that questions again and again. The entire program will be dealt in that way. So to explain this perspective, I will just show you a small demo of a newspaper article, and then secondly, direct previous year questions of any topic like, let's say, international relations. Okay? It's a fascinating subject for everyone. So I'll tell you how to do. I'll actually directly go to the international relations because that's something that is fascinating to you. Okay. Now, when it comes to international relations, there is a syllabus pointer, GS2, General Studies Paper 2. According to the notification, it is termed as Paper 3. What is Paper 1? Essay. In that, one of the syllabus pointer is India and its neighborhood. Now, that is the only line you have. India and its neighborhood. And the second piece of information that you are equipped with is previous year questions. That's all. Now, if you take a look at the previous year questions, it feels, what is the obvious way of preparing? You look at an individual question, then go to ChatGPT or Gemini or all the LLMs. Back in our day, we used to say Google. Now it is ChatGPT and Gemini. So you will copy, paste that article. You will say where to find this information, and one article link pops up, or you will paste it in some Perplexity like app. Some article pops up. You will make a summary of that, memorize it, and store it in your notes. And that question won't come again. Why did you do it? Because your toppers told you that you have to do PYQ analysis. Yes or no? Were they wrong? No. Did you understand what they meant? Again, a no. Did you actually think whatever you are doing is going to be useful? Yes. Will it actually be useful? No. How did you decide all of this? Again, you experienced it. Any seniors who are seated here, if you write an answer on a daily basis, one new topic, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 7, whatever you wrote on day 1 will vanish from your memory, and day 7 will be fresh. This is why I say, without a framework, without drawing a boundary, no matter how much information you collect, a purposeless study of any news item will yield nothing. Always understand the intent of every activity, and every activity that we do should yield an outcome, and that outcome should add up logically to the exam's demand. So let's say, for example, the framework that I am suggesting to approach this India and neighborhood as an example only. I am not going to pick up a newspaper article, read the headline and say, this is what is the issue. This is what you have to take from the newspaper article. You don't need me for that. You can ask ChatGPT. That is exactly what you're doing. Nobody is reading the paper. What is the takeaway now? First, let's draw the boundary. Why are we reading this? If I have to create a framework, you have to know the problem statement. The problem statement here is, where is the geographical location of India? What's the location? Its location is both an opportunity and a threat. If you analyze this from the perspective of international relations, there is a foreign ambassador who gave a very beautiful explanation of the strategic location of India by analyzing it through the lens of international relations. The geostrategic presence of India places itself amidst 5 different arcs. Arc of growth and prosperity, instability, communications, uncertainty and energy. What do you mean by that? If you take a look at the map, see, if this is, let's say, if this is India, and let's say this is the entire Middle East. Arc of energy means Persian Gulf, Caspian Sea, Russia, all these areas where you get access to petrol, natural resources, crude oil, natural gas, everything. This arc, let's say you have something like this. This is the arc of energy. All these countries are important to India because we are dependent on them. Okay? Then, arc of uncertainty. If you take a look at these areas, Himalayas, Tibet, China, etc., you never know what happens there. Everything to the north of India. So, Central Asia and north of India, it is called arc of uncertainty. So, you might get a question from Tibet or China or Nepal. They will share a similar pattern of threats. There is something common between that happens in China, Bhutan, Nepal on how it impacts India. That is why it is called the arc of uncertainty. Now, when it comes to arc of communication, these refer to the Bay of Bengal, Arabian Sea, Indian Ocean. Okay. Here, sea lanes of navigation, shipping routes. You have Strait of Malacca and other important place. They will decide how much security we will have in our entire region here. If a ship is passing through this area and if pirates attack that ship, Indian Navy can't protect that ship, trade will be impacted or not? So this is the arc of communication and how to establish and safeguard that. Then you have arc of instability. So this is your Afghanistan, Pakistan, where extremism, terrorism, all these kinds of money laundering, the western borders of India. This is the definition of India and its neighborhood from the lens of one ex-bureaucrat, diplomat. Why did I pick up this? I'll show you. If you take a look at the previous year questions, take a look at this. There are some common traits that instability in the neighborhood will create. No matter what question comes, you can still put the same subheadings. So, any piece of information that you take from newspapers, you can tag it along. For example, take the latest Persian Gulf issue. What is the recent location in news because of Iran-US war? Strait of Hormuz. Even if you are not preparing for UPSC, all it requires is casual glance at news. So, hampers regional trade and integration initiatives, disrupted connectivity. True or false? Then, economic drag, petrol became costly. Geopolitical vacuum. That place is very sensitive to entire East Asia. Everything to the east of Iran is dependent on that location's freedom. Next point, heightened uncertainty, security and its significance. If I give you a framework like that, any piece of article can be clubbed under these headings. And by doing so, you will realize that there is nothing new that this article gives us. And you will discard it. But not reading it is a bad idea because you will not learn the skill of attaching that line that you read under one of these headings. That skill of tagging the information that you studied under existing side headings is what decides how quickly you will create answers. Yes or no? That's why you have to first draw the framework. Now, if I connect those strategic arcs to UPSC, I decided that these are the questions. For example, you will see whether it is the Sri Lankan crisis, SARC and regional stability based question, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Maldives, Gujarat doctrine, all of them are linked to this arc of instability and turbulence. In all these questions, I can simply say the subheadings are the same. The subheadings are always the same. But depending on the topic and depending on the current affairs of that year, the specific jargon and the keywords you can pick up. Facts from that cases will be picked up and you will plug it here. That is how you should prepare current affairs. In the absence of this framework, you will not know how to address these questions. What would you rather do? Take one big magazine, repeat the same information from multiple lens, and everywhere you will miss points because you forgot. You forgot revising the content. Am I saying that you can't write a good answer by using those magazines? No. But is this the most efficient way? Need not be. Am I not asking you to memorize? Of course not. How else will you remember all this? You have to memorize. But memorize the easiest thing first and add content later. So this is how we will be dealing with the entire current affairs for both prelims and mains. The entire objective is filter, learn the skill, tag it along, practice, fix, repeat. And this will be the objective of the current affairs program. Is it clear? I just demonstrated one thing. Tomorrow we will go in depth. We'll be beginning with international relations. Okay? If you have any more questions, you can ask me now. This one, no need to take, I'll repeat it tomorrow. This is the first instinct you should avoid. Don't try to, you will get it in Google. First try to absorb it. From your understanding, reproduce. Don't memorize. Your first instinct will always be to store, note down, copy, memorize. The training here will be to avoid that instinct. That will be step number 3 or 4, not step number 1. And you do it again and again to rewire your mental conditioning. It will help you clear the exam in a much quicker way. Alright. Any more doubts? Did you learn anything new today? Yeah? So, this is how we will approach the program. And see you tomorrow. Okay?